reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them.
You think it is wrong?
Every country cheats us.
Nobody wins in a trade war.
Let Donald Trump run the global
吹灭
economy.
别人的灯，并不能让自己更光明。
April the 2nd, 2025, Trump administration's self-proclaimed Liberation Day. But liberated from what? Common sense? This whiteboard of tariff math simply fails in the real world where supply chains do not obey mega algebra. Let's autopsy this genius formula. If country A sells America $100 billion in goods but only buys $50 billion, that is a 50% trade gap. Team Trump's solution? Half the percentage and slap that number as tariffs. This isn't economics, it's ideological alchemy. Even John Bolton, National Security Advisor during Trump 1.0, thinks it's crazy.
These tariffs are a form of economic illiteracy.
Now, following this flawed logic, even the most unlikely targets were hit by sweeping tariffs. An uninhabited island, a remote military base, and a deserted whaling station all became casualties of this misguided trade war. American farmers, the group Trump claims he's defending and proudly referred to as his solid base, that made the farmers proud too, until tariffs came and stayed. Caleb Ragland, a ninth-generation Kentucky soybean farmer and longtime Trump voter, recently pleaded in the Free Press for an end to the tariffs. His family, farming for 200 years, now faces bankruptcy by 2027 due to plummeting soybean prices. Since 2018, the U.S. has permanently lost market share in China to Brazil, while domestic farmers struggle with unsustainable losses. Agriculture supports 34 million U.S. jobs, making its decline a national crisis. Despite supporting Trump's tax cuts, Ragland and many MAGA voters now oppose further tariffs, demanding trade negotiations to avert collapse. This backlash reveals the political cost of Trump's trade war. His base is starting to turn against him, proof that economic pain outweighs ideological gains. Beyond American farmers, who swallowed the rest? American consumers.
It is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
According to the budget lab at Yale University, the 2025 tariff package is expected to drive consumer prices up by 2.3% in the short term. For the average household, that means an annual loss of $3,800 in 2024 dollars. Even for lower income families, the hit is substantial, around $1,700 a year.
This is the biggest self-inflicted wound we've put on our economy in history. We're increasing inflation because the prices are higher because of the tariffs. That gives people less spending power.
We're going to start feeling the pinch pretty soon, right?
We're feeling it now, you know. I go in there, I see the prices. I try to act like they don't exist, and I just try to work harder.
In swift retaliation to U.S. provocations, China launched a series of targeted countermeasures on April the 10th by imposing a sweeping 34% tariff on all U.S. imports, which went to a 125% final, catching up with the U.S. rate. Moreover, China restricted the export of 7 rare earth elements, requiring companies to secure special export licenses to ship these critical minerals and magnets.
关税战、贸易战，没有赢家。中方不愿打，但也不怕打。中国从来不吃这一套。
谈大门敞开，但对话必须在相互尊重的基础上，以平等方式进行。施压、威胁和讹诈，不是同中方打交道的正确方式。
Now let's make one thing perfectly clear. China never wanted this trade war. We were pushed into this position by Trump's relentless economic attacks. Think about it. Why would China willingly choose a conflict that was projected to slash 2.4% off our GDP growth?
China can't quite keep its head down. China is under direct attack by the Trump policies. But part of it also is a hostile action vis-a-vis China especially, which is that China must be broken in its global success story because it's a competitor with the United States.
And this did not only come yesterday. It's the culmination of years of American aggression. Remember when they crippled Huawei, targeted TikTok, and now they're slapping tariffs on practically every trading partner they have? This pattern speaks for itself.
Because of America's unrivaled economic power, that Trump can even attempt his tariff policy. It is U.S. economic heft that allows him to try to force the rest of the world to bend to his will. But Trump is using American power in such a capricious, destructive, dumb way that it will almost certainly result in a lose-lose for everyone.
China had foresaw this trade conflict and prepared more thoroughly than during Trump's first term. Its wide and rapid countermeasures represent a legitimate response to unjustified aggression. By taking its case to the WTO, China isn't merely protecting its own interests. It's standing up for the entire rules-based trading system of all, and globalization that benefits all nations. And of course, this isn't only about trade balances. It's about stopping a dangerous precedent that might make right in global commerce.
What the U.S. is doing now is not reform. It is rejecting the very system it created.
Ray Dalio, the founder of the hedge fund Bridgewater Associates, warned about tariffs, growing debts, and other economic and political concerns.
And we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession. What was put there is like throwing rocks into the production system. And those impacts would be enormous in terms of the efficiency of the whole world, great cost.
China's trade report showed solid first quarter growth, with total imports and exports reaching 10.3 trillion yuan, a 1.3% increase from last year. The standout was exports, which jumped almost 7%, demonstrating resilience despite U.S. tariff pressures, and that Bloomberg called better than expected. ASEAN cemented its position as China's top trading partner with a 7% growth, while business with the EU continued steadily at 1.4% growth. That's over 10 million yuan in trade every minute. Notably, trade with BRI countries grew 2.2% and now makes up more than half of China's total trade. Perhaps most telling, trade with the U.S. still managed a 4% growth despite the tariffs, a proof that genuine economic cooperation can overcome artificial political barriers. And that resilience grows for a reason. Unpredictable trade wars and political chaos make the U.S. system look shaky. China's economic fixes and tech progress has kept things stable. While the U.S. cuts research funding and fights over politics, China's steady approach is winning more trust, both at home and abroad.
China has more options than the United States. If their exports shrink a little bit, they can partially offset that by increasing domestic demand through more government expenditures, tax cuts, other kinds of policies that are readily available. The United States, on the other hand, does not have so many options because a lot of the things we buy from China, we can't get anywhere else.
The U.S.-China rivalry isn't over, but America's struggles have made China's system look stronger by comparison. On the ground, China is hosting two big trade shows, the Consumer Expo and Canton Fair, with record numbers of exhibitors. China's open markets give the world more stability, said Claudia Januzzi, president of the Brazil-China Innovation Economic Research Institute. In just a few days, the world's largest car roll-on roll-off ship BYD Shenzhen is about to make its maiden voyage. The new cargo ship, capable of carrying 9,200 of the automaker's eco-minded vehicles, is also the world's most environmentally friendly, equipped with energy-saving devices to enhance operational efficiency, as reported by Car News China. And it's BYD's fourth cargo ship of its kind. BYD plans to have a total of 8 carriers by early 2026. Think about that. Growth is when you look ahead and open your mind, not when you seal yourself inside walls.
中国政府的开放政策不会改变，开放的大门只会越开越大。我们还在致力于营造高标准的良好的营商环境。
The world is standing at a crossroads now. The Trump way, causing chaos and conflicts, or China's way, working together for mutual benefit. Jayant Menon, a senior fellow at the Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore, said, the uncertain and erratic nature of U.S. trade policy is forcing countries to consider de-risking, not from China, but from the United States. Now, as the U.S. doubles down on unilateralism, the world is pushing back, including the European Union, among Washington's closest allies.
European Union, as you know, is a strong champion of multilateralism. We are strong supporters of free and fair trade, and therefore we are naturally concerned about current global trade debate about tendencies to erect new tariff walls.
Our readiness to take firm countermeasures is, if necessary. All instruments are on the table.
Si nos surge algo, como he tenido ocasión de trasladarle personalmente al presidente Xi, es apostar por la apertura, por la cooperación internacional, por ampliar nuestra red de relaciones con otros países, que las guerras comerciales no son buenas, no gana nadie.
In Asia, as the tariff wall erected against Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN nations, the neighbors are deepening ties with China for healthy trade. The Chinese president's latest state visit has reinforced partnerships in Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia, positioning Beijing as Asia's trade anchor. When Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao met his Japanese and South Korean counterparts for the first time in 5 years, the 3 East Asian countries agreed to strengthen supply chains and revive stalled free trade talks. Even Japan, a traditional U.S. ally, refuses a rushed bow.
どんどん妥協すると。とにかく交渉さえまとまればいいというふうな交渉方針が望ましいと私は考えておりません。
And looking southward, at the recent LAC summit, a telling moment is about how the global south is rising against a tariff war.
Cuando el viejo orden neoliberal impuesto a nuestros países colapsa y las grandes potencias como Estados Unidos redibuja su mapa económico sin preguntarse qué pueblos quedan atrás.
El gobierno de Estados Unidos amenaza y pretende legitimar la imposición de medidas coercitivas unilaterales sin respeto al ordenamiento de los demás países. Procura convertir el chantaje, el acoso y la manipulación política en prácticas habituales contra nuestras naciones.
Diante da decisão dos Estados Unidos de impor uma sobretaxa aos produtos brasileiros, tomaremos todas as medidas cabíveis para defender as nossas empresas e os nossos trabalhadores brasileiros. Defendemos o multilateralismo e o livre comércio e responderemos a qualquer tentativa de impor protecionismo que não cabe mais hoje no mundo.
Of course, we're not saying U.S. allies will suddenly side with China, but Trump's us versus them thinking and unpredictable moves are pushing them to look for other options. Working with China based on mutual respect just makes more sense than following U.S. orders. China has become the top trading partner for most countries worldwide. In a clear contrast to U.S. policies, China took concrete steps in December 2024 by removing import tariffs for 43 least developed countries, 33 of them in Africa. By contrast, Trump's deepest tariffs hit some of Africa's poorest nations like Madagascar and Lesotho particularly hard. These countries are already struggling after sudden cuts to U.S. aid programs for healthcare, food security, and education. It's a colossal mess. The collateral damage of this trade war is going to be felt more in Africa than most other places, said Kola Kalim, one of Nigeria's top entrepreneurs and chairman of the Shoreline Group conglomerates. Who is going to listen to America in a year's time if there's a conflict on the continent? If you're cutting all this, you're sending a message. You don't care. Team Trump craves law of the jungle in the dinosaur duel where T-Rex jaws decide everything, but Earth rewards the adaptable. Tyrants, extinct.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
China doesn't demand loyalty oaths. While America retreats behind walls, we're constructing highways. The world is watching MAGA algebra crumbling while our bridges become supply chains. Our partnerships, not sanctions, move mountains.